This right here, guys, is the full protein protocol, the only guide you're gonna need in order to maximize your results while gaining muscle or losing fat, depending on your context, so you know exactly what to do and you know that what you're doing is the correct thing to do and you're getting the best results. This allowed me to go from a physique like this right here to a physique like this, and it's going to allow you to go from a physique much worse than this to a physique much better than this. Because right now, you may face some problems with the information you are getting through social media or through even other sources of information. Nowadays, you have a lot of information about protein, about nutrition, about anything that you want, but you have no context, and the information you get is extremely opposite. You either get someone telling you that you need to eat per pound 2 grams of protein, or someone who tells you that you only need to eat 0.6 grams of protein. So it's extremely opposite information, super polarized, in order to get more views, comments, shares, or to just sell their program, sell their unique method. And that leads to a lack of clarity because you now don't know what is really working for you. And as I say, you don't know what's gonna work better for you because you have your unique context, your unique goals, and that people doesn't know your context, they doesn't know your goal, and they talk from their unique experience. So I'm gonna solve that problem in this video because right now in this video you're probably looking for knowing what you should do depending on your exact content, which is something that we're gonna be talking about later, and to get proven information so you know you are getting the best results, leading both of them to overall clarity. I have been training for years and I have managed to go from a physique like this right here that you see in these photos to a physique like this, or like this, or like this, where I have a lot more muscle and a lot less fat. So if I knew this that I'm going to tell you right now 1 or 2 years ago, I would have gone from this physique right here to this physique a lot easier and a lot faster than I did, because we're gonna optimize the protein intake, eating exactly the amount that you need, not more and not less. So first, we're gonna see what you need to do in order to gain more muscle and to perform properly in the gym. First, the most recent studies shown that when you go up to 1.62 grams per kilogram of protein, obviously, or what is the same 0.73 grams of protein per pound, you're gonna get the best results, because if you go to 1.8 to 2, 2.2, 2.4, or even more, you are not getting more results. You are not gaining more muscle or just recovering better. You are recovering the same way and just in a plateau, because you are not getting more muscle and just spending calories in protein, while you could be spending the same amount of calories in carbohydrates that are going to allow you to perform better while training and even in your day-to-day, because it's the main macronutrient that you need in order to have energy and to feel just more energetic. So you could spend these calories eating carbs instead of eating more protein, so you improve your workouts and you feel better throughout your day. But there's a problem with this study, because they didn't measure one important thing, which is the amount of body fat, the body fat percentage of the subject. Because let's say that the subject 1 is 220 pounds, okay, and he's 40% body fat, somebody with a lot of fat. So now we have subject 2. He's also 220 pounds, but now he's 10% body fat, okay? So there's a difference with the same body weight of 30% on fat percentage. That's a lot. We're talking of somebody who is fatter than the average American, who is around 29% nowadays. It's a lot of fat, but he's even fatter than the average American, and we are talking that the subject 2 is 10% body fat. This is so low. He's probably a pro bodybuilder, because if you weigh 220 pounds and you have 10% body fat, you are probably a pro bodybuilder, or you are super tall. One of two options. So now subject 2 is 132 pounds on lean mass, and subject 1, sorry, and subject 2 is 198 pounds on lean mass. There's a 66 pounds of difference on lean mass between subject 1 and subject 2, but both of them weights the exact same. They weight the same, but the amount of muscle is super different. Okay, so this will obviously make a difference in the amount of protein that you need to take. It's not the same to be a fatter than the average person subject than to be a pro bodybuilder. Okay, it's very different. So what I did is to do this experiment with myself. When I started the experiment, I was weighing 154 pounds of body weight with a 10% body fat, so I had 138.6 pounds of lean mass. At that point, I started with 1.6 grams per kilo, or which is the same 0.72 grams per pound, because I didn't want to lose muscle. So I just started with this amount and not with less protein. But I realized something. I realized that I wasn't recovering as before. I wasn't feeling as good. And I wasn't just feeling the same performance that I used to have when I was eating more protein. So I went up a little bit to 1.8 grams per kilogram. Here you have the amount in lean mass, so you know it clearly. And even with 1.8 grams, I was feeling like a little bit worse than I used to feel. So I went up again a little bit more in protein. So this amount right here, 1.9 to 2 grams, there wasn't really any difference between 1.9 and 2 grams of protein per kilo. This was the moment where I felt the best, where I felt like I was recovering properly. I was recovering as I was doing before when I was consuming even more protein. And in resume, the moment where I get the best results because the remaining calories could be spent eating carbs instead of more protein or instead of fats. And also, I did the experiment with 2.2 grams and 2.5 grams. I went up to 2.5 grams per kilo, and I was feeling the same way. I wasn't feeling that I had more gaining of muscle, that I had a better recovery, but I was just worsening my performance eating less carbs. So the most optimal consumption was eating around 1 gram of protein per pound of lean mass. But we have to keep in mind something, and is that yes, the most optimal consumption was around 1 gram per pound of lean mass, but I was in a caloric deficit. I was training Muay Thai 2 times a week, and I was working out in the gym 5 times a week. So I had a little bit more of requirements than someone who only trains gym. And in people who doesn't train anything else besides gym, I have seen 0.9 grams per pound of lean mass to be enough. This amount, I will say, is the better amount for most people. If you don't practice anything like contact sports or marathons, professional swimming, for example, if you are not anything like that, you will get the best results with 0.9 grams per pound of lean mass. But how do I know the amount of lean mass that I have on my body? So simple. We're gonna see it. First, we want to calculate our lean mass basing on this image right here. I did it so bad, the circle. Okay, right now it's a little bit better. This right here is a pro bodybuilder. Even most of the bodybuilders don't get down to 3 to 4%, so it's something that you are probably not right there. 6 to 7 is where most bodybuilders compete, and 10 to 12% is a very good spot. Is pretty lean and is where the gym goer who is a tryhard and who is pretty lean is not most of the time, but sometimes. Most of the time, the average gym goer is something between 20 and 50% of body fat. The average gym goer is something between 15 and 20% of body fat. More like 20%, but sometimes if you take a little bit more of care about your health, about your habits, your nutrition, your looks, you may be around 15% body fat. But people usually underestimate how much fat you need to lose in order to be lean. They think that they are leaner than they really are. Many people they are in 25% body fat, and the average American nowadays is in 30% body fat. So just to keep in mind, these are the average percentage for each group, but you still all need to look at these numbers right here at these photos. You can search for another photos of reference to track better your fat percentage, and this way you are able to calculate the amount of lean mass you have, because now knowing the fat percentage that you have, you're gonna subtract that number from 100. Example, you have a 25% body fat, so now you have a 25% lean mass. It's it's very easy. Now you multiply your weight for 0 point the percentage of the lean mass. So if you are, for example, 200 pounds, you multiply 200 pounds per 0.75, 0 point amount of lean mass. Okay, and the amount of lean mass is 100 minus 25 per, sorry, the percentage of body fat. Okay, so now we multiply this, and we get 150 pounds of lean mass. So now we know exactly the amount of lean mass that we have, and we can calculate 150 per 0.9 grams in order to know the exact amount of protein that we need to eat to maximize our gainings of muscle and our recovery from gym training. But now, what I do if I want to lose fat, if my goal is not to gain muscle or not to just gain muscle, but to also lose fat, what I should do? Okay, don't worry. If your goal is to lose fat, we may need some changes, but not what you think, because protein requirements are not higher in a caloric deficit. I want I want you to know this, to have this very clear, and to just introduce this in your head, in your brain. Protein requirements aren't higher. So the benefits from a little bit more of protein that we're gonna get in a caloric deficit are that we're gonna get more satiety in the short term, because protein is the most filling macronutrient. It fills you more than fats and more than carbohydrates, and it's also more satiating in the long term, because it slows your digestion, so you have the food in your stomach for a longer period of time, and that way you wanna feel full for a longer period of time. Also, it can lead to more enjoyment and adherence to your diet, because sometimes you just prefer to eat some chicken, tuna, eggs, cheese, Greek yogurt, I don't know, whatever you want, and even some sweets, because you can do pretty good sweets with protein powder and some other things that taste amazing if you know how to do it. They taste amazing. So sometimes you just prefer I don't know, some cheesecake that tastes like white chocolate, or just some desserts, some beef, some eggs, instead of eating more rice, more potatoes, more bread, sourdough bread. By the way, that's the best option. So sometimes eating more protein makes your diet easier, but what I will recommend you to do is to not go super high. I will then go over a gram of protein per pound of body weight, and only if you feel like you need it to stick to your diet. You don't need to do it every day, because you can. You will get more benefits filling that amount of calories with carbohydrates instead of protein. So it's just something that could help you to stick to your diet, to enjoy more the way you eat, to enjoy more the things that you're consuming on your day-to-day and your daily basis, and just to stick better to a diet and to stick better to a healthier way to eat. So if this can help you, perfect. It's amazing. But don't rely on eating so much protein every day. Okay, now we have another benefit, which is the thermic effect of foods. This is up to 10% of your diet, and it's just what your body spends to digest each macro. When you eat something, your body needs to break that thing, to break the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats in the food you're eating. So each one of these macronutrients requires an amount of energy from your body to correctly digest them. And the one that requires the most amount of calories from your body to digest it is protein. Protein is up to 20 from 20 to 30% of the amount of calories that it has. For example, if you are eating 100 grams, sorry, 100 calories in protein, you're gonna burn 20 to 30% of that amount just digesting it. In carbs is from 5 to 15%, and in fats goes from 0 to 3% of your consumption. So the one that gets the ground with difference is protein. This doesn't mean that you should eat a lot of protein, that you should eat more protein than you really need, because it's not going to make that big difference, but it's something that will always help. And when you have a diet that is not super low in protein, you will burn a little bit more of calories eating that amount of protein. Now we're gonna break some myths that you probably heard. And the first one is that you need to eat protein each 13 hours. That you need to eat protein each 2 or 3 hours or each 6 hours. I don't know, whatever they they are making up, because this is something that is just fake. It doesn't work like that. You don't need to eat protein each 13 hours or each some certain time. It's not like you have a clock in your body that requires to eat protein each certain time. It doesn't work like that, so don't worry about this. Don't worry about eating each 1 hour, each 2 hours. This is not something that you have to worry about. Just worry about about the daily intake. Another of the myths that you probably heard is that you only absorb 30 grams per meal. This is also completely fake. You can absorb a lot more than 30 grams per meal. I have also done this experiment. I have eaten from 15 grams to 20, 30, 15 grams, 100 grams of protein per meal, and it just didn't make any difference. There is not a significant difference. Just do it the way that sticks better to your plan, to your diet, and to your routine, because it's not something that is going to make any difference, and it doesn't even make sense from the biological aspect, because if you think in the prehistoric human, would he be worrying about him not eating more mammoth because it has more than 30 grams of protein per meal? No, man, don't eat more mammoth because it has more than 30 grams of protein, so you are not able to absorb it, and we are not developing and evolving correctly. It doesn't even make sense. So don't worry don't worry of this, because it's not something that is going to determine the amount of muscle that you put in your body, or the amount of fat that you are able to lose. Don't worry about this. The third one is plant source protein is worse. Mm, It isn't worse, but when you are eating strictly in a vegan diet, you will need a little bit more of protein, just because of the fact that leucine, which is an essential amino acid that your body needs to build muscle, is found in a bigger amount in animal-based protein sources. So when you're eating strictly vegan diets, where the only protein source you get is from plants, you are having a harder time getting leucine. So you will need a little bit more of protein. You will need to go maybe to, even without doing Muay Thai or something like that, to that gram per pound of body of lean mass. Sorry, you may need to that amount. To be honest, I don't exactly know the amount, because this video is not directed to vegan people, because I'm not vegan. I haven't done this experiment yet, and I don't think I'm going to do it in a future. So just keep in mind that if you are strictly vegan and you only eat from and the only protein you get is from plants, you may need a little bit more. The study says that is something between 1.1 and 1.2 times the amount of protein that you should eat in normal conditions, where you eat also not all when you eat not only plant-based protein sources but also animal-based protein sources. And the last one is that the amount of protein that you need to eat depends on the body weight you want to reach. This is the most stupid shit I have ever heard. It doesn't even make sense. If you have ever heard this, please never hear that person again because it's literally retarded. This doesn't even make any sense. How in the earth could you think that you will need the same amount of protein if you weigh, for example, let's say that you are 120 pounds and you want to weigh 315, and somebody who is 300 pounds wants also to weigh 315. Do you really think that you need to eat the same amount of protein weighing weighing 120 pounds than someone who weighs 300 pounds, more than double the weight that you have? Do you really need that? That you, do you really think that you need to eat the same amount of protein? It doesn't even make sense. You need to eat protein in order of the weight that you have, depending on the body, on the lean mass, on the weight you have, not depending on what you have, what you want to have. It doesn't make any sense. If I want to be 400 pounds lean, it does it means that I can do it. It means that I should eat as someone who's already 315 pounds lean. No, because I have my body, I have my muscle, and I have my own requirements. Also, I don't need to eat the same amount of calories because I'm gonna be getting fat instead of muscular because it's something that requires of time. So this doesn't even make sense. It's the most stupid shit I have ever heard. So now we're just gonna have some clarity after all this of what doesn't matter and what does matter. What doesn't matter? The time of consumption, the time where you eat your protein. If you are eating it in one moment or another moment of the day, it won't matter. When it comes to gaining muscle, to losing fat, it won't make any difference. The amount of protein per meal, it won't matter. You shouldn't be taking care of the amount of protein that you are eating per meal. Maybe if you eat 200, 200 grams in one meal, if you are doing something like that, it may affect the absorption of protein. But if you eat like a normal human being and you are not a Neanderthal, it won't make any difference. Okay, if you are not eating one mammoth a day, it won't make any difference. Also, the type of protein, this is only making a difference if you are strictly vegan. If you are not strictly vegan, you don't have to care about if you ate some lentils or some chickpeas or some soy. The studies take this in mind. They counted the amount of protein that you need to eat, eating not only animal protein sources, but also plant-based protein sources. And when I did the experiment by myself, I also consumed not only animal sources but also plant sources. What more doesn't matter? If you want to lose fat or gain muscle, there's not a difference. Being in a caloric deficit won't make you to need to eat more protein. It's just the same amount of protein. Also, doing more exercise barely matters because if you're doing a very hard exercise like combat sports, training so many hours a week, you are running marathons, you are a professional swimmer, you are something like that. If you're not something like that, you won't need any extra protein. So unless your priority is not the gym and you are more in MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, something like this. Also, while doing weightlifting workouts, you probably won't need any more than 0.9 grams per lean mass, per pound of lean mass. And what does matter? Your body weight and your lean mass, because our body weight allows you to know the amount of lean mass that you have. And this, the amount of lean mass, is what is going to determine the amount of protein that you need to consume. This is the most important factor in order to know how much protein you need to eat. So just focus in the lean mass. So now, what I will do as a young male who wants to lose fat and gain muscle, or even just to lose fat or just to gain muscle, okay? It's the same for both of you. So first, I will weight myself. You just wake up, go to the bathroom, take a pee, get your clothes off, and weight yourself in the same conditions. You can do this for some days to track yourself, to track your weight properly, and to just take the average of the entire week, for example, so you know your weight more precisely. But even if you do it for just one day, you just have to keep in mind that you need to pee, to do it while fasting. You shouldn't eat before weighting yourself, with your clothes off, and in the morning. Okay, also without drinking. Now you look at the mirror after weighting yourself, fasting, without clothes, and after peeing in the morning. You look yourself in the mirror and estimate your body fat. Now that you know the amount of body fat that you have using the image that we saw before, this image right here, now you're gonna eat your lean mass obtained with the previous procedure that you saw in the, also behind the photo. You're gonna eat your lean mass per 0.9 in protein. And if you have any doubts about your body fat, just take your body weight and multiply it by 0.8. And whatever you get as result, eat that in protein. It will be as simple as that. So that way you make sure that you are eating enough protein. And as protein intake is dependent on lean mass, and you shouldn't lose lean mass while cutting, you should lose fat, not muscle. Never reduce the protein intake when you lose weight. Okay? If you are losing weight, never reduce the protein intake, because it depends on your lean mass, and when you are losing weight, you want to lose fat, not muscle. And if you are lean bulking, you don't need to rack your brain calculating your new body fat percentage each week, because you don't know exactly how much is muscle and how much is fat. Just simply multiply your body weight per 0.9 and eat that. It's that simple. Let me in the comments if you have any other doubt, if you have something else that you will want me to break it down so you know exactly what to do and how to adapt it to your context. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can follow me on Instagram, you have it in the description. So thank you for staying to the end of the video. I hope you learned something helpful and that you can now manage your protein intake properly, knowing that what you do is what you should be doing, and that you are doing the correct thing in order to get the results you are looking for.